Great. Rocky, thanks for that, and thanks for the opportunity to do this. Thanks, everyone, for hanging in there. For the remainder of the time here, I would like to talk about service asset and configuration management, and talk about some of my experiences and lessons learned in helping make it successful and sustainable experience for the people in the company. Just a quick intro about me. I'm 25 years plus in IT, over 15 years experience with ITSM, and that's with a variety of platforms, not only the Micro Focus and HP, but I've worked in past experience with IBM and ServiceNow. So I've got a lot of experience with some of the different platforms out there. And one of the things I want to talk about this morning, at my most recent stop, I led an ITSM initiative with the HP and Micro Focus platforms at Citizens Bank. And specifically, that was with the UCMDB, Service Manager, and Asset Manager platforms. And, you know, I want to talk about some of the lessons that we learned at Citizens that we helped make it a success there and help to sustain it. So just a couple things to start off here. You know, when I talk to some peers and go in and talk to customers about configuration management, you know, I always say configuration management is a lot more difficult than you realize. And the statistics really bear this out. 80% of CMS and CMDB projects, on average, fail to meet expectations. And I think there's a few factors for that. I think one big thing is companies that go into a project with the idea of creating this monolithic CMDB and putting all the data they can think of, all the CIs and attributes into a CMDB. You know, I think that phrase, "a single source of truth," could actually be a bumper sticker for what not to do with a SACM implementation. And indeed, I think we've seen over the last few years the industry's kind of moved away from talking about one big CMDB and to more of a federated CMS structure. I think another factor is in data quality. If you don't have some rigor around looking at the quality of your data and whether it's giving your users what they need, if it's complete and accurate, you're going to run into problems, and your implementation is going to face a lot of headwinds. And I think a third factor has to do with the value to the company. I think going into a configuration management implementation in ITSM, that you're doing it just to do ITIL, and you're not thinking about what the business is going to get out of it, I think can create, you know, some problems in terms of the traction that you're going to get in the company and the value the business is going to see in the implementation. So I think making sure that you have some sort of business value, business outcome to the configuration management is an important part to your success. So I want to back up there. I want to do a polling question here, and Rocky, I'm going to turn it over to you. But we're just going to get a little. You there, Rocky?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
So Anne Marie's going to send out a notice to everyone with a polling question. So it should be popping up here real soon, and it's really what best describes your assessment of the use of CMS and CMDB at your company. So take a minute to click the most relevant answer on this survey, and then we'll share that with the team here in a second. So let's see what we're getting here. So yeah, people are responding, and I'm not sure if you can see it, Bill, but I've got, here's what we have so far. The most popular one is have one
Sure.
but don't trust it, or it's not being used. So that's about a strong percentage. The next one, have one, and it works well. That's another probably 40% of the people on the call. Some people just don't have it, and a few of the folks don't plan on having one. So probably the strongest response has been have one but don't trust it, or it's not being used effectively. And then the second largest answer is have one and it works well. So we'll close it at that.
Well, that's cool. I'm pretty impressed. I would expect the folks that have it and it works well, they're on to other things. But the fact that people have it and it's not working well, or they're looking for some added benefits to it. I think there's some interest in what we're talking about here, because like I said, I think configuration management in SACM is a hard thing to pull off. So thanks everybody for voting. I think we'll just move on here. There we go. All right. So before we touch on a few of the key aspects to help with your success, I just want to talk briefly about the importance of service asset and configuration management. SACM to me is the core of IT service management. If you think about it, the information that you get from incident and problem and change management, it's dependent upon having good and accurate information in configuration management. If that core isn't solid, if you're not managing that well, those processes are going to be less valuable or not working well for your enterprise. So that just makes configuration management a vitally important thing to pay attention to. Another thing is if users can't trust the information that's in your CMS, it's not going to be successful. If people are deriving reports or they're consuming it from one of the other processes, again, if they're getting bad information, if they're going to get it and it's not there, or it takes too long, it's going to make your CMS less successful, and people are going to walk away from it. So vitally important to pay attention to your configuration management. But another thing is that from a difficulty perspective, there's some things that are headwinds for SACM as well. And I think one thing is that configuration management itself usually isn't a discrete end goal. The CMS is usually an enabling technology that helps these other processes. And a lot of companies, when they get into this, they want to get some of the benefits about deriving from improving mean times to repair, or better change management planning, or there's other discrete end goals than, say, just putting in a CMDB. So I think that makes it a little bit doing configuration management a little bit nebulous to some folks as a means to an end. I think another thing that I talk about frequently is the focus on the technology at the expense of sort of sustaining operations. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times when you get into the technology implementations, the vendors focus a lot on the implementation of the technology, and once it's up and running, there's not a lot of focus on what happens after that and how you sustain it and really make it valuable to the business. So I think a little more promotion on the daily and the weekly operations and usage is something that's important to think about, and that technology focus can make it a little bit difficult to pull off. And I think one more thing is what I would refer to as the CMDB perception problem. Over the past couple years, there's been a lot of talk in the IT press about whether CMDBs are are relevant anymore. Are they dinosaurs? Things like virtualization, containers, and microservices, they make it hard for discovery and CMSs to do all that they need to do. And so that provides a little bit of a head scratcher as like, can we really do this? And I think, as you'll see when we get into some of the other slides, I think there's still a lot of value that a CMDB and a CMS brings to a company, but you certainly have to think about as these new architectures emerge and these more ephemeral objects appear that we need to manage, how you're going to incorporate that into the CMS strategy. So, what are some of the keys that I would point to that helped us at Citizens? So, I alluded to it earlier. I think key number one is shifting the focus from that implementation to more of an ongoing operations and sustaining operation. Moving from a focus where you're thinking about, well, what can we go and discover and collect, to what business problems can we help solve for the company? What questions can we help answer? At Citizens, when we identified some specific business problems, like DR environments that were out of sync, knowing the currency of critical applications, prioritizing patching activities, these are things that a CMS are well suited to help answer. And when we started sharing some of that information with business units and indeed some of the executives, we got a lot of kudos and attention, and really helped us gain confidence in what we were doing and the service asset and configuration management practice. I think another thing that helps with your maturity is instilling a culture of accountability. Putting in a governance structure so that you have representation from process owners, from CI owners, from people that own some of the data sources that you want to you want to integrate with or import information from. At both banks that I worked at, I had a large role in configuration management, and it wasn't until we got some governance and instilled some accountability around looking at some of the information and actually having people have it part of their job description to have to respond to errors that we found or missing data, but just to help us keep it accurate and up to date, but making sure that there was accountability. It was a very important part to the success and overall long-term success of the SACM practice at Citizens. I think the second key that I point to in bringing some value here is the use of service models. I mentioned previously how config was foundational for other processes, but importantly, a lot of that pertains to application impact, and you can't have that without modeling the application. Prime drivers for implementing and operating a CMDB are engaging the impact of what you're doing. If you think about from an incident management perspective, being able to, when a ticket is spit out, understanding the application or service that is that's affected by that incident. From a change perspective, being able to plan a change around your critical applications and its maintenance windows, or when you're touching a CI, whether it's it could possibly affect something that you that could have an impact. That's critical information that most people want to get out of a CMS. From a compliance and regulation standpoint, a lot of shops, it's mandatory to be able to have an application topology to provide auditors or regulators a list of all the elements that make up the application. And then, also at Citizens, from a cost optimization standpoint, when we were able to develop an application portfolio of applications that have been modeled, it was a valuable source of information for application architects, for business owners to understand what makes up their applications and make some decisions about whether to upgrade and how much to upgrade those applications. So, there's really a lot of value in service models. So, I think that's an important key to an overall success for service asset and configuration management. Also, though, from a value and cost perspective, I think people ought to also think about how much you do model from a service model perspective. I'm of the opinion that you don't need to model everything that you have, especially if you have a large application portfolio. Certainly critical and major applications, it's a good practice to model them, but you may have applications like a cafeteria menu or a company announcement application that if it goes down, it's not that big a deal, but it may cost you more to model it and then sustain that modeling over time. So looking at the portfolio and making some decisions about the value and the cost of that, I think is a worthwhile endeavor, because it does take some time and resources to both model and sustain those service models in perpetuity. So the third thing that I'd like you to take away from my experience has to do with data integrity and governance. I talked a couple slides ago about governance in general, but here I want to specifically drive home the point about data governance, because again at Citizens, until we installed some rigor around the attention to what was in the data and had ownership of the data, had some meetings, had monthly meetings around looking at the data, responding to what we were seeing. Importantly, creating some KPIs that spoke to the quality of the data. This is CMDB Audit 101, where you're creating an audit function, and for both internal reasons but also external reasons, being able to promote to your users the quality of the data. It's a really important part to their embracing of the data and defending any questions that the users may have about the data. Putting in KPIs for completeness, so CI, testing CIs that all required fields are populated. For correctness, so that you're testing, for integrity rules, whether there are CIs that have been updated in a while. Just, having some rigor around what's in your CMDB, how it's being managed, and then importantly, again, instilling some accountability so that there is a group of people or persons that are there to respond and correct that data, so that you can promote the quality of your data and use it in so many different places. I mean, if you think about the importance of data quality for your incident and problem and change and other processes, for your change impact analysis, SLA reporting, the whole 9 yards. Data quality is so important to the mission of configuration management. And I will tell you that if you do not have some rigor around data governance, it's very hard to be successful with it. So, wrapping it up here, again, I think there's a few keys for long-term success that I'd like you to take away from this presentation, and one being that focus on maturity. Focus on your processes, your governance, and accountability. point number two, I think exploiting those service models so important to the value to the business and so many other functions that you have in IT service management broadly. And then employing that data governance to ensure the confidence and the correctness of the data is huge. Like I said at the outset here, configuration management is really difficult, and I think by not overreaching and maintaining integrity and focusing on business problems, it's going to help keep you anchored and help your success over the long term. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into being successful, and I've talked about a few things right here. But for anyone out there that wants to further the discussion, has some follow-up they want to do, well, I just posted. I think it'll be. I think it'll be available. There we go. It's in the presentation there. My contact information. I'd be happy to talk further about my experiences and particular things about SACM or ITSM in general. So please reach out to me if that makes sense, and I'll open up to any Q&A that may be out there.